Somewhere between the barcode scan and the checkout beep, there's a number you never see. It's not the price on the shelf. It's the return target of a fund that owns the brand. Across the food industry, private equity isn't just buying companies, it's buying time. Typically 5 to 7 years of ownership. A window in which a fund has to acquire, reshape, grow, and then sell a brand for more than it paid. That countdown changes everything. How aggressively costs are cut, how fast new products are pushed out, how much risk a company is willing to take with quality, supply chain, and debt. Here's the basic playbook. A fund raises capital from investors and goes hunting in the food and beverage sector. It looks for a platform, a strong mid-sized brand with decent margins, loyal customers, and room to expand. Once that platform is acquired, the fund starts layering on smaller brands in the same or adjacent categories. This is the roll-up. Multiple companies, previously independent, are bundled into a single, larger group. The reward for pulling this off is financial leverage, higher bargaining power with retailers, more efficient factories, shared back-office functions, and ideally a higher valuation multiple when the group is sold. If a single brand traded at a modest multiple of earnings, the combined platform, with more scale and cleaner numbers, might trade at much more. In food, this strategy has a particular appeal. The sector is full of fragmented niches: craft snacks, specialty beverages, refrigerated better-for-you lines, wellness products, private label manufacturers. Many of these are founder-led businesses that have hit a growth ceiling. For private equity, they're puzzle pieces waiting to be snapped together. Even in a slower deal environment, tens of these transactions happen every year. Platform investments, in particular, have held up as funds redirect capital to fewer, more meaningful bets. Dry powder, committed capital that still needs to be deployed, keeps the pressure on. When money has a use-by date, the search for new food deals doesn't stop, it just becomes more selective. Inside the brands, the tone shifts the day the deal closes. What was once a family business or a founder-led startup now reports to a board that lives in spreadsheets. Monthly reporting becomes weekly. Key performance indicators multiply. Where decisions used to balance product passion, team culture, and long-term positioning, they now orbit around a single gravitational force: exit value. Debt amplifies that pressure. Most buyouts load the company with loans that must be serviced from cash flow. On paper, this is how private equity boosts returns, by using borrowed money instead of only investor capital. In practice, it means the margin for error narrows. A cost overrun, a failed product launch, a supply shock, they all hit harder when interest payments are due regardless. So what does the 5-year clock look like in practice? In the early phase, everything feels expansive. New SKUs, new channels, maybe a bold push into e-commerce or food service. The fund wants to tell a compelling growth story to the next buyer. But as the exit window approaches, the priorities can pivot. Capital spending is scrutinized. Experimental projects get shelved if their payoff falls outside the fund's timeline. Ingredients may be reformulated to protect margins rather than to elevate the product. Promotions are tuned to lift short-term revenue, even if they train consumers to wait for discounts. The consumer doesn't see the investment memo. They only notice subtle changes. A favorite snack tastes slightly different. A beloved niche brand suddenly appears in every supermarket, then quietly disappears a few years later. A plant closure moves production to another region, and complaints about quality tick up. For founders, the story is more complicated. Selling to private equity can solve real problems. It can provide capital to expand capacity, professionalize operations, and break into new markets. It can offer liquidity for owners who spent decades with most of their wealth locked inside a single company. And for many teams, a disciplined financial partner does bring better systems, clearer metrics, and sharper focus. But there's a structural tension. Founders usually imagine their brand living for decades. Funds are mandated to exit in years. The brand is a chapter in a portfolio story, not the whole book. So even when a partnership starts with aligned intentions, the ticking clock pushes both sides toward trade-offs the original team might never have made alone. The cycle often doesn't end with one sale. Once a fund has driven value in a platform, it looks to pass the group on, usually to a larger strategic buyer or another fund with a fresh timeline. That means a single food brand can be bought, restructured, rebranded, and sold multiple times within a single generation of consumers. Each handoff layers new systems, new incentives, and new cost targets onto the same name and logo. So the question isn't whether private equity is good or bad for food. The question is how far you can compress a brand's life into an investment horizon before the product itself and the trust around it starts to erode. When everything is optimized for the exit slide in a pitch deck, something else is inevitably deprioritized. Sometimes it's redundancy in the supply chain. Sometimes it's headcount in quality assurance. Sometimes it's the slow, unglamorous R&D that keeps a product genuinely better, not just cheaper to produce. Private equity isn't going away. As long as food remains a resilient, cash-generating sector, funds will keep circling categories that look ripe for consolidation and financial engineering. Retailers, regulators, and even consumers are starting to pay more attention to who actually stands behind the brands they rely on. In boardrooms, the smartest strategists now think carefully about when to invite private equity in, and how to protect brand equity and product integrity when they do. Next time you pick up a new brand that seems to appear everywhere overnight, it's worth asking a quiet question. Is this a long-term steward of the category, or a temporary owner racing a clock? Because behind the familiar designs and comforting flavors, a different kind of hunger is at work. Not for taste or tradition, but for returns measured to the decimal point. And that invisible appetite is increasingly part of what you're paying for at the checkout.